All right, so there were two different types in 7.4, which is Gaussian elimination with back substitution and then Gauss-Jordan. The goal for the Gaussian elimination, remember, is to get the diagonal of 1 zeros below, and then you do back substitution to solve for it. Gauss-Jordan, the goal is diagonal of 1 zeros below and above, and then that way you just take it straight from there. So these two are both right, and they're a little different. I kind of pulled them both in so you could see. If you didn't get to 4, -3, 2, then somewhere along the line you made your mistake. Okay, you can try to check. I can't check each and every one of yours, but you can try to check where it is. So this one, obviously, if you rewrite the very beginning matrix, it looked like this. And then my recommendation was to get that one in the top left corner first. That one's already there. If it wasn't, and there was a 1 somewhere, I would rearrange them, okay? If the 1 is not in that top left corner, and there's no 1s in the first row, or the first column, sorry, and you'd have to like multiply by a fraction to get like all of them, then maybe don't get the 1 first. That you can avoid that. Then just move down to the 3. So even if that 1 wasn't there and I wanted to move down to the 3 to get a 0 there, I would try to find a way to cancel it with whatever number's there. Okay, so sometimes it's not always the easiest thing to get the 1, but if you can, it makes the rest a little bit easier. Then you want to work your way down. So if in that 3's place I want to put a 0, you could multiply -3 times row 1 and add it to row 2, which was done here. And then you replace row 2 with that 0, 1, 7, 11. And your matrix looks like, well, it would have looked like this on the top. And then the 2, 2, 1, 4 would still have been on the bottom. And then if you want to get a 0 in this space, which was here, you can multiply row 1 by -2 and add it to row 3, or, which is what is here. And then you get the 0, 2, 7, 8. Then your matrix looks like this. Then the last 0 you want to get is where the 2 is. For that, you can only use row 2. You would multiply row 2 times -2, add it to row 3, and then replace that with that bottom row, which is now 0, 0, -7, 14. And then from there, the last thing I need is a 1 in the position where the -7 is. So I multiply everything by -1/7, and it gives me that last row, which is 0, 0, 1, 2. Then this is in row echelon form, which means you've got your diagonal of 1s, and you have some 0s above, but you don't even need them. You want to keep whatever was there. So then from there, you can take it out and use back substitution. So if I use this, it would have looked, after the bottom is replaced, it would have looked like this, but this is, actually, it would have looked like, after you replaced it, it would have been x minus 3z equals -2 for the first row, and then y plus z, oh no, that was right, plus 7z, this is right here, plus 7z equals 11 for the second row, and z equals 2. And then you want to work your way back up. So take the 2, plug it in, and then take the 2 and the y, which is -3, and plug it back into the first one. And then this one, I think you did almost the same thing, right? It's just the order in which it's done. Same answer, okay? Again, just be careful. If you go to find your first one and it's really obscure, try to go carefully the first time so you don't have to redo this, because that's how you're going to lose time. But if you've got some really obscure fraction, it's probably not the right answer. I'm not saying you'll never see a fraction. You could see some simpler fractions. I'm not going to give you something that's like 4 digits over 2 digits or something crazy. But you could see, simpler fractions, 3/4, 1/2, 7/2, like stuff like that. I wouldn't be afraid of. It's the things that are much worse. Okay, and then if that's the case, you got to go back through and try to find your mistake. That's where the notation is going to be really helpful. So if I know that that was supposed to be -3 R1 plus R2, then I can look at R1 and make sure I multiply times -3. So it's your way of checking your work. It's also my way of giving you the partial credit if you can get it. All right, then the second one is Gauss-Jordan method. So this is, again, where we're getting our diagonal of 1 zeros above and below. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this so that it's 2, -8, 8, -2, 1, -3, 1, 4, -6, 3, -15, and 9. And I would recommend the same step 1. Try to get the 1 in the top left corner if it's easy. This one it is. I can switch row 1 and row 2. So I get 1, -3, 1, 4, 2, -8, 8, -2, -6, 3, -15, 9. Then working my way down, I would want to 0 where that 2 is. So I can multiply the top row by negative 2 and add it to row 2. And I get negative 2, 6, negative 2, negative 8, add it to row 2. 0, negative 2, 6, negative 10. And that's going to replace row 2. So 1, negative 3, 1, 4, 0, negative 2, 6, negative 10, negative 6, 3, negative 15, 9. Then I want to get a 0 where this negative 6 is. So I can multiply row 1 by 6 and add it to row 3. 6, negative 18, 6, 24, negative 6, 3, negative 15, 9. And you get 0, negative 15, negative 9, 33. And that replaces row 3. Then I either want to get a 1 here and here, well, not there yet, or I want to get the 0 here, which I would recommend going there, okay? But when you do the, actually you could do the 1/2 here too and make it a little bit easier. So I might lose my 0 on the end, but it's going to make the next step easier. If I do negative 1/2 times that row, I get 1, negative 3, 1, 4, 0, 1, negative 3, 5. The only reason I would say to do that is if your whole row is divisible by 2, which made it nice, easy numbers. Now I can just multiply, if I want to get the 0 here, I can multiply row 2 by 15 and add it to row 3. So 0, 15, negative 45, 75, 0, negative 15, negative 9, 33, 0, 0, negative 54, 108. That replaces row 3. Okay, then I want to get a 0 here, here, and here. And how you do it is kind of up to you. The order doesn't really matter there. If I'm working with that 54, I would try to make that the 1 first. Okay, it's easy, right? 54 goes into 108 twice, so I can do negative 1 over 54 there. 1, negative 3, 1, 4, 0, 1, negative 3, 5, 0, 0, 1, negative 2. Now I can work my way up. So I can put a 0 here by multiplying the bottom row by 3. I don't want to use the top row because if I do anything with those two, I lose the 0 that's there. So when I go to find the last 0 in row 2, you have to combine it with row 3. So 0, 0, 3, negative 6, plus 0, 1, negative 3, 5, 0, 1, 0, negative 1. And that replaces row 2. And then if I want to replace or get rid of the 0 here, I can multiply the bottom row by negative 1 and add it to row 1. And I'm replacing row 1. And then the last 0 I need to get is here. I can only do that with row 2. So 3 times row 2 plus row 1. And that replaces row 1. And I get x equals 3, y equals negative 1, and z equals negative 2. So my advice, a couple of things. One is be super careful. Okay, that one wasn't even that bad, and look how many steps it took us. 2, pay attention to your time. On your test, you're going to get one system with 3 variables. It's going to have you start it with Gaussian elimination with back substitution, like we did with yesterday's example, and then finish it with Gauss-Jordan. So it's the same question. You're not restarting it, okay? The benefits are that you should get the same answer both, so you can be checking your work. The hard part is if you're stuck on the first one, it's going to carry into it. So just be really, really careful. Your test review, so it is basically what was on your quiz, which I'll give those back to you tomorrow. 7-1, 7-2, 7-3. 7-1 is graphing and substitution. The word problems included interest, break even, and that's the one where you want to always round up your units, right? So if it said like you needed to make 72.1 units, then your answer would be 73. You can't make less than, even if it would make sense to round down. Geometric, perimeter, area, that kind of stuff, and then anything like that. Selling tickets, having money, anything where you can create a system. And graphing could be, and so could the substitution. You could get linear, nonlinear. So you could get 2 lines. You could get special cases where if they don't intersect ever, like they're parallel, it's no solution. 1 line, all real numbers. And the special cases with elimination and substitution is if the variables cancel out. True statement, it's all real numbers. Variables cancel out. False statement, it's no solution. And then 7-2 is elimination. You had your word problems there as well with the equilibrium point where you had to find the number of units and the price per unit. So to find X and then plug it back in to find P. And then the 3 variables and partial fractions. So you will not get a new 1, new 2 problem. If you have time and you have it at the end with the Gauss-Jordan and Gaussian elimination, you can, of course, use that to check that work. Okay, but you won't get 2, 3 systems. There's just not enough time. So you will see the partial fractions from 7-3. On the review, it says it, but make sure you also review repeated factors from partial fractions. We can look at those again tomorrow, but that's on your, you want to go back to the quiz review for those. And then 7-4 was what we just did, the Gaussian elimination with back substitution and the Gauss-Jordan. I will allow you to use scientific calculator, but be careful because function calculators have matrices on them. You cannot use those. So if you want to bring the calculator you want to bring for your test on Friday tomorrow, I can look at it and tell you if it's a yes or a no. Okay? You can do this without it, just like the quiz. It just won't be fun. Okay? But again, make sure that there's, and if you're unsure, look for a button that says matrix. If it says matrix, you cannot use it. Okay? Just scientific. Questions for me? Expectations. Okay, so your test review is open. It's on Canvas. My advice is do it tonight so that tomorrow we can come in and review questions, and then Friday is your test. Tomorrow's also math, so we're on a shorter schedule. And then solutions to that is the odds are on CalcChat and the evens are on there. So just make sure you check it.